Good afternoon. I hope you are all well and have enjoyed the weather over the last few days. I've just got a short thing really today to share, and it's an encouragement for us to keep persevering with one another, loving one another, and serving one another. Because as the weeks have turned into months, and as we look ahead, things do look a little bit like we're going to be dragging on for a while. When are things going to change? And some things open up, so we start to get involved with our own lives and we start doing the things that we enjoy doing again, or things where we have to go back to work, and other scenarios where we find our time being taken up once again with the things that were there before the lockdown. Now, the important thing in this time is to remember that above all, and this is something God's been speaking to me about, that we are here to serve one another. So as I feel like my life is getting busier again and my time is restricted, and the time that I have had is now reducing because of work, and other coaching commitments and things with the family, then I know that my life is getting squeezed again, and time is precious. Therefore, this reminder is for us to think, well, what is it that we're called to do? Overall, what is it that Jesus asks us to do? And there are some things we do that we feel take effort, and that actually we feel we're the driving force behind. So if there's times when you may or may not feel that it's always me that has to make a phone call, it's always me that has to chase this up, it's always me that has to do something in order to get somewhere rather than someone else doing it, then we can start to get frustrated as we get tired and as we get busy again, thinking, why should I do these things? Why should I start these things? Why should I serve in these areas? And this is where I want to just encourage us, really, because as a church, I know many of us, all of us, serve faithfully in our communities and in our life groups and in the church, and with our friends. We are a friend orientated church, which is brilliant. But let's not lose sight ultimately of what Jesus has asked us to do as his church. And it's a reminder to me, and I wanted to share that with us this afternoon. So I'm just going to read a bit from John 13, and it's quite a long passage. So I'm just going to read it through, though, and pick out a short bit just to encourage us to keep going, to keep serving, and to keep putting others first. So it's from John 13, and it's where Jesus washes the disciples' feet. So it's from verse 1, and I'm going to read through to verse 20. Now, before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that this hour had come to depart out of this world to the Father, having loved his own who were here in the world, he loved them to the end. During supper, when the devil had already put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God, and that he was going back to God, rose from the supper. He laid aside his outer garments, and taking a towel, tied it around his waist. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, Lord, do you wash my feet? Jesus answered him, What I am doing you do not understand now, but afterwards you will understand. Peter said to him, You shall never wash my feet. Jesus answered him, If I do not wash you, you have no share with me. Simon Peter said to him, Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head. And Jesus said to him, The one who is bathed does not need to wash except for his feet, but is completely clean. And you are clean, but not every one of you. For he knew who was to betray him, and that was why he said, Not all of you are clean. When he had washed their feet and put on his outer garments and resumed his place, he said to them, Do you understand what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you also should do just as I have done to you. Truly, truly, I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. If you know these things, blessed are you if you do them. I am not speaking of all of you. I know whom I have chosen, but the scripture will be fulfilled. Who ate my bread has lifted his heel against me. I'm telling you this now before it takes place, and when it does take place, you may believe that I am he. Truly, truly, I say to you, whoever receives the one I send receives me. Whoever receives me receives the one who sent me. And it's a very a poignant evening. You can imagine the scene where the disciples are there. They are aware Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, whom they are to love, to serve, to follow, to obey. And he starts to take his coat off, his jumper off, get a t-shirt, and then he wraps the towel around him, and he does the thing that you do on arrival at the houses because your feet get dirty when you're walking from place to place. And he does the thing that disciples will be saying, you shouldn't be doing that. My feet are filthy. You shouldn't be washing my feet. And they start to have a little question of why Jesus saying, no, I'm going to wash your feet. Now, why does he do that? There's a number of reasons, but the one that struck me was to demonstrate that actually, in our service to one another, even in the dirty jobs, Jesus said, I'm not asking you to do anything that I would not do or have not heard the Father telling me to do. So when we feel like we're giving out and we're having to serve and we're doing the dirty job, Jesus is saying here, I've done this, therefore you should also do this. So as we serve one another and in this meeting, he acknowledges that there will be one there that will turn against him, Judas, and yet he continues to serve with the knowledge that he will be betrayed by this group. And it doesn't stop him, it doesn't deter him. It isn't the outcome is not based on their response. It is his heart thing to serve and to demonstrate to us that actually, if the Son of Man, if the Son of God, if Jesus Christ came to serve and do the dirty things, the dirty jobs, in order to serve the people he loved, to demonstrate that, then we too are called to make the same sacrifices. So when we ask questions of each other, like, I always have to make that call, I always have to take that to them, why don't they come and get it? I always have to give this away, why doesn't anybody give me these things? And I always have to start this, why doesn't somebody else start this thing? When we ask all these questions, they go round our head, and we think, why me? Why me? Why me? Then the question comes back to the point that actually Jesus has said, I have done this. I have served. This is my demonstration, my sacrifice to you. Yes, you could wash my feet, but I have chosen to wash your feet. And it says here, for I have given you an example that you also should do just as I have done to you. A servant is not greater than his master. So Jesus is our master, is our savior, and is the one that we follow. When he says, I will serve and serve and serve, we are his servants and we are not greater than him. So by choosing not to do the things he has, not to serve, we're actually saying, do you know what, Jesus, I'm better than you. I'm a greater person than you. I don't need to do this. You did, but I don't need to do this. And he's saying a servant is not greater than the one we serve. So if it's good enough for Jesus, he's saying this is what we're looking for in the heart of the church, is to serve. Our reward is to see the Father smiling upon us and saying to us, saying to me, Ben, with you I am well pleased. Or to any of you to say to you, with you I am well pleased. I do it because I love my Father and my Father loves me. I do it for the pleasure of my Father, for the obedience to him. If you know these things, blessed are you if you do them. So in the times when you feel like it's hard, and at the moment it is, because it feels like there's an ongoing serve, I've got to serve, it's always me, those kind of feelings, because we're not around each other all the time, his promise is, if you do these things, you will be blessed. And God is about blessing. And when we serve him, he does not leave us, but he chooses to bless us. And Jesus is our example. And as he says to serve, and as a church, there are many ways we can show this. Okay, but for what I'm trying to explain and talk about today is just that encouragement to keep texting one another, to keep calling on one another, to keep serving one another in acts of service, in gifts if that's needed, in sharing everything we have, whether it's food, whether it's time, and to keep on with it. And when we feel like we can't give any more, just go back, sit with Jesus and say, and listen, Jesus, this is what I've called you to be, a sacrificial church. But when you do these things, I will bless you. And that's his promise to us. And as times may get harder again, when people start losing jobs, potentially down the line, and things become difficult in patches where they get good, they get bad. The church is here with the foundation of Jesus to be able to remain constant and firm. And there's a song that talks about being the lighthouse, that we are a light for people to come to serve, and to be a safe place. But that comes at a cost in terms of us, because we will have to give. And that could be time, it could be money, it could be anything that we have to initiate that could be hard. But actually, Jesus said, you know what? I've done it. I'm asking you to do it. And when you do it, you will be blessed. And the Father will bless you for doing it. So, Grace Church, I am blessed being part of this church. I am grateful to share in the journey that is Grace Church with you guys. And you are servants. You are all good at serving one another. And I just encourage you to persevere. And God's promise to you is to keep serving, and He will bless you. Because that's what He delights in doing. He delights in blessing His church and blessing His children. And when we're obedient to Him, it brings a smile on His face, and He will encourage you. So keep it, well, coming to a Blue Nose song, keep right on to the end of the road. That's the encouragement today. Keep going, and God will bless you, will bless us as a church. God bless.